Thank you. It's a big pleasure for me to be here, and I must say that within my organization, JESDA, men are a minority. I'm the only man in my team. I asked my female team members to come to this meeting today, but you know, the childcare situation in Switzerland is what it is. They couldn't travel for the meeting today, so I'm very happy to be here. My name is Martin Mueller. I'm the director of what we call Science Anticipation at JESDA. JESDA stands for the Geneva Science and Diplomacy Anticipator. It's a foundation in Geneva that tries to anticipate the future of science and technology and then bridge the ecosystem in Geneva, where we have, of course, excellent companies, universities, but also international organizations such as United Nations, humanitarian organization. And the idea was, as science and technology are moving so quickly in the future, can we anticipate what's cooking in the labs? And then can we foster the conversation that we need to have to make sure that when those technologies are out, we can govern them in a way that's beneficial for all. When we start our work, we always start from the science principle. Our first idea is to ask, who gets to shape the future? And I think at JESDA, I think we understand and we think that it's the scientists and researchers that are essential agents and people that shape the future, our collective future. So you are all shapers of the future. And therefore what we're asking is, what visions of the future do scientists and research anticipate? So this is the core of our work. So we don't start by business ideas, we don't start by the big social challenge of our work, we really start by talking to the scientists and researchers. What visions do they see of the future? Because they build the future. So science anticipation, what I do, is about revealing the potential scientific futures that researchers are envisioning, which are driving the work now and the actions in the future. And for this, we release every year what we call the Science Breakthrough Radar. So it's an online platform. It's a free book and report where, with more than 2,400 scientists across the world from 90 countries, we try to anticipate what's happening in science and technology across 5 main domains that characteristic how we represent our world. So, quantum computing, AI, extension reality, etc. That redefine who we are as humans. If you think about genetic engineering, brain-machine interfaces, cognitive enhancements. The third domain is how do we relate to our environment? So we discuss here the future of food systems, ocean sciences, ecologies. Last one, we try to anticipate what's happening as well in social sciences and humanities. How do we relate to each other? Future of economic thinking, digital, the behavioral science of group, among others. And at the end, you also try to anticipate sciences or technology which are foundational, such as mathematics, or transversal, such as synthetic biology. And this is some of the anticipation that we do. We try to look at 5, 10, or 35 years, the short, mid, and longer term. And it's not about telling what will happen in the future, because nobody can predict, but it's about giving a sense to decision makers, from the diplomatic sector, from civil society, but also from business, about what they need to prepare for. For example, we have been anticipating the future of quantum computing in 5 years, that we might see the first breakthroughs in useful quantum applications for material sciences and drug discovery. We have been working on brain-machine interfaces and cognitive enhancement. So the idea to link, brain implants with AI, bridging natural with artificial intelligence is a 10-year prospect. And again, something that we have been working on as well is on what we call the orbital environment, which leads to the exploitation of space resources, for example. And for example, here, in 25 years, going back to the moon and being bases on the moon is something that we see as well as a prospect. We do this anticipation every year. So every year we reassess, we reconvene our scientific communities, and then we rediscuss, do those anticipations still hold? Do we need to adapt? Is science accelerating faster than we think? And if yes, what does that mean? Just quickly, this is the latest one that we have released. We release those reports every year at our summit in Geneva. So in October, we gather our scientific community. We gather leaders from, again, international organizations and governments, from philanthropy, from the private sector and civil society, try to take stock, okay, the scientists are telling us that those breakthroughs are coming, so what do we do together to ensure that it can be beneficial for humanity? And those are the highlights of the last report. So out of the 40 teams or so, those are some of those that we decided to highlight, such as artificial intelligence, no wonder, cognitive enhancement, so how our brain machine interfaces, how our neurosciences advances and what this means. Engineering human biology, this is all about genetic engineering, synthetic biology, ecology, how can we act and intervene on nature, pathogen biology, language and communication, so a more social science-driven topic. How is AI, for example, changing the way we communicate with each other? How are languages evolving in the future? And can we also decode animal-to-animal communication through AI? Mathematics is also undertaking good revolution. We have also tried to do some anticipation in the field of philosophy. How are those sciences and technologies changing the human condition? How are identities or values evolving in the future, and how might that impact society in 5, 10, 25 years? We had a discussion on geopolitics, and we had a conversation as well on the future of research. So this is loads of data. I won't go into details of all of those. Happy to explore them with you in details. Have selected a few examples here. I'm not sure you can read them, but the idea was just to give you a flavors about what we do. So every anticipation that we do is directed by a scientist from the public or the private sector. The scientist organizes workshop with us and ultimately reviews all the briefs that we're preparing before we publish them. And you can see here I've taken 4 examples of domains that I think are quite transformational in the future. Artificial intelligence, so this is work that we have done with Pascal Fung from, at that time she was at Meta Fair, but I think she has started her new company now on AI. Cognitive enhancement, we have done this work with Jamie Henderson from Stanford. He's a neurosurgeon working with Neuralink, among others. Pathogen biology, we have done this work with Christian Happy from Nigeria, one of the leading personalities trying to decode pathogens, how they evolve in a natural landscape. And synthetic biology, this is work that we have done with Patrick Tsai, who is at Manchester University in the UK, but also at Hong Kong University in China. And we try to be global because the geographies of science and technology are also changing very rapidly. We always try to anticipate at 5, 10, 25 years. Why are we doing that? Because I think it's important to give a sense of directions where the field is moving. 5 years is relatively easy. This is what people are working on at the moment. 10 years is the follow-up of the work, and 25 years is closer to science fiction. But I think it's important as well for people, with all the communities we are interacting with, to have a sense about what's happening in the labs. I can just quickly go through some of those anticipations just to give you a sense of an idea. So this is just a sentence, but if you go into the report, it's much more elaborated and discussed. But what we see in AI, and this is work that we have done last year, is that you see now AI models that are learning to create with unprecedented discovery and creativity. This affects, of course, a lot of work that's happening in the scientific community. We see hypothesis generation, for example, is something that goes stronger. At 10 years, we see finally that all the work that's happening around world modeling. Can you model the physical reality of the world? Go beyond language and image and sound. This is what you call embodied AI, which will affect robotics and will autonomous agents as well. And we start to bridge the digital and the physical and the real world. And in 25 years, there is a question whether we will see self-directed AI systems that really then transforms the way science is being done. Not only assisting the human, but able to reshape the full process of scientific discovery. And of course, this has huge implications for the private sector. Of course, you think about fields such as robotics, automatic systems. This has strong implications as well from a geostrategic and geopolitical point of view. If AI and data are now needed to make cutting-edge science, who gets access to those platforms and technologies? Who decides who can do what? I think we see that happening as well today with some of the latest frontiers model where they are not open to everyone. The other topics we have been working is the topic on cognitive enhancement, as I said, with Jamie Henderson. And here we see as well tremendous progress, powered as well by AI. We see in 5 years the complete brain mapping, for example, that could unlock new ways of intervene on the brain in new therapies. In 10 years, brain-computer interfaces are able to restore functions. This is already the case, but here we speak about more deeper functions that not only restore mobility, but also touch upon cognitive processes about languages, memory, and thought. And in 25 years, I think we see an era of whole brain interfaces. And here it's all about going still deeper into the brain and tackling issues such as PTSD, depression, memory loss, and memory disorders. There is a big question here as well, and there's always a bit the line that we're discussing with our stakeholders. What happens if you go beyond restoration or regeneration, but you go into enhancement and augmentation? What are the ethical questions that we are being asked? How do we resolve the governance of this brain data that's being shared? There's also a question here that we deal with. As long as those devices happen in the medical space, in the clinic, we have strong regulations, we have ethical guidelines, clinical trials, but as they move more and more into the consumer electronic spaces, I think the problems are much less well defined, and we start to enter the frontier where consumer electronics that connect to the brain are being more and more used and deployed across the globe. The last one is about pathogen biology. So if you all remember the COVID crisis, I think we now again see a new era happening. That's all again powering by AI, where you can analyze many more genomes, and we can model their functions and how they will affect human health and environmental health. And this is going to accelerate in the future. This AI revolution will not only tackling the identification of pathogens and their effects, but also will affect drug development as well to combat these infections. And what Christian told us, that a 25 years prospect is the development of PAM family vaccines, building upon mRNA technology that could tackle a much broader set of pathogens at once, broader protection as well, again, entire family of viruses as well. Again, these have strong implications, of course, on access to those medicines, on the speed of development, control again, and vaccine sovereignty. We've seen around the COVID crisis how hard it was to get access to the vaccines. This might also be a problem in the future if only a few can access to the technologies and are able to develop those. The final one I wanted to add is a discussion about synthetic biology, because I think there's a lot of things happening in this space here as well. So this is all the technologies that help engineers and scientists to engineer the cell and to act on the basic components of life itself. Huge applications for medicine, of course, and health, for bioremediation and environment. New materials could be developed, new enzymes, and this is a field in a huge boom. In 5 years, our scientists see the first synthetic human chromosomes to being developed. There's a huge project in the UK, the Synthetic Human Genome Project. Can we build the human genome from scratch? This is a 5 years prospect. 10 years with the cost of DNA synthesis becomes much cheaper. So I think engineering new biocompounds, new biological products will be much cheaper, and we might see an explosion here again of products, applications as well as manufacturing costs go deeper. Finally, in 25 years, I think we discussed this idea of AI cloud labs. Can you have autonomous labs that do research and discovery and experimentations? And this is also something, these infrastructures are being built at the moment, but I think we see these effects still 25 years down the road. This will change the way we do then science and research. You can imagine a machine where you can interact through prompts, not through pipettes. It will speed up things as well, and therefore might have huge impact on people's society, on the planet. I have 30 seconds to go, so it'll be quick. What I wanted to say to you is this talk, of course, that we live in a time where science and technology are moving very, very fast. And we see an acceleration in those time. Of course, one of the reasons for this is AI, but not only. We see more investment on science technology, and therefore there is a need, I think, for all of us to try to anticipate where science might go. By anticipating, also we set a narrative for the future, and that's why it's important that all of you as well think about the future and interact with those concepts as well. We have a framework as well, of course, where it's not only about anticipation, but it's also about action. Anticipation is not enough. You need to act upon what you see. And we have developed a methodology where we bridge the science anticipation with actions in a multilateral context. That's our job, but I think it's equally valid for investors, business leaders. You need to see what's coming. You need to develop the framework so you can act upon those. Last message maybe for you and for me, I think we are all an agent of shaping our collective future, so science and technology, especially when we think about science, we do science. I think we have a huge responsibility as well to make sure that it benefits the most at the end of the day. Well, our time is up. I'm around for questions, comments, and discussions if you like to talk to me. Thank you.